Margaret, who are our voting members? Do we have a quorum yet?
Mayor Moran, Ryan Aylesworth, Mr. Coleman, Dale Rose, Nathan, Sean, and John Armstrong. So yes, you do. And
Okay.
Sean Dunn, excuse me, Sean, but Sean is not here yet that I can see.
Which Sean are you talking about?
Sean Dunn.
Oh, okay.
Dale just got it.
Dale just walked in. Okay, thanks.
Right. Okay, so welcome everybody to the March 12th meeting of the Town University Relations Committee. This is Nathan First chairing the committee today. As you know, Mayor Moran and I co-chair this, and it's my turn. So happy to be here for the
Welcome.
correct me where I take a misstep, folks, because this is my first time chairing this group, but excited to be here again with you all and talking about the collaborations between the University of Connecticut and the town. So we have quorum, as I understand it. The first item of business on the agenda is the opportunity for public to address the committee. Margaret, do we have anybody signed up to address the committee today?
No, we do not.
Okay. So then the second item of business is approval of the minutes from the February 13th meeting. Does anybody have any questions, revisions, or edits to the minutes from the February 13th meeting of the Town University Relations Committee?
I'd be happy to make a motion to put it on the floor for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, or is that how we do that?
You could ask if there's any discussion about
Okay.
amendments, but it doesn't look like anybody's jumping out of their skin to say there are, so.
All right, very good. If no other revisions or comments, Brian, you good? Okay, he was gonna say something.
No,
No,
we're good.
okay.
Yeah.
If no other comments or revisions, then all those in favor for approval of the minutes from the February 13th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions? Great. The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda are updates, starting with the staff-to-staff meeting by Ryan and myself. So Ryan, I'll kick it to you first.
Yeah, so I've just say, Nathan and I have had, I think, a few meetings since he has taken over as the primary liaison to the town from UConn. Really appreciate all the energy and new ideas, kind of new ways of looking at things that Nathan has demonstrated in the early going. Look forward to fostering this partnership and working on shared goals, shared interests between the town and UConn. Maybe just to highlight some of the things, I think I touched on one or two of these from the council meeting last night, but our most recent meeting, which was last week, we had Pamir from who oversees, I'm gonna get the full, it's like there's like a 4-comma title, but Vice President for Research and Innovation and et cetera, but one of the big things in Pamir's portfolio, Dr. Alpe's portfolio, is that he oversees the tech park. And the town has an active interest. Obviously, UConn has an interest in the future of the tech park, but just at a high level, very excited to hear that it sounds like there's a vision that the university is trying to move forward with for growth and expansion of the tech park. I know this has been an area of interest and just curiosity on the town side for a while, because once IPB went in, things kind of have remained stationary for a while. And so it sounds like there may be some action that may be forthcoming in the years ahead. And of course, that has really important implications for the town and how we plan and how we plan for future growth and development, anticipation of UConn's growth in the tech park. And so we talked about that, and that was enlightening. We talked about just overall things that are going on with housing development in town. One of the things I assume Nathan will touch on here is spring planning. And then we also received an update on John Armstrong's old position. I guess that was technically after the meeting, but Nathan relayed to me that position has gone live. I believe it's assistant Dean of Students, I think
Correct.
was, yep.
Yep.
And so, and then that position closes or the application window closes maybe by the end of this month, I think.
Yep.
And so hopefully we get some really, or you all get some really stellar individuals with an active interest in partnering with the town and all things off campus. So I would just say, you know, obviously, again, it's early, but really just appreciate everything that that Nathan's brought to our discussions in the early going.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ryan. And we're very interested in making sure that we have a good rotation of university leaders, including Premier and others. Of course, Robert's present at those meetings on a regular basis, but I think it would be really healthy for us to have a regular pattern of conversation touching upon some of the key areas of the university at those conversations going forward. So we'll try to be deliberate about that and bringing the right people to the table. I don't have anything further to add other than that. So that
Can I ask a question?
for sure.
What are the qualifications you're looking for in this person who to take John Armstrong's old slot?
There's actually a full job description, which I failed to bring with me, but why don't I get you a copy of it? And so you
Yeah.
can see.
Can you
what's
give
on
us
there.
just a broad outline of what
Yeah.
kind of a person you're looking for?
Yeah, there's, educational requirements of master's degree and experience in student affairs related field, of
Okay.
course, engagement with students in diverse populations and these kinds of things. So those are the kinds of things you'll see as a part of the minimum qualifications that are in there. But then otherwise, you'll see a good description of the job duties and everything as a part of that. So, so I'll send that along and actually we can maybe distribute it to this whole group.
I had another question too. It's an assistant director position,
Assistant Dean of Students.
dean of
That's
students.
correct.
So which ranks higher, an assistant dean of students or a director?
It's a good question. I would just say they're just different. We have a dean of students. If you think of a dean in, its truest sense, that's a fairly high level position at any university. And then anybody reporting directly to then that dean or an associate dean would be of the director level or somewhere close to that. So anyway, what we're looking for in this position is somebody, much like John in his former role, although not the same exactly, but somebody who has the capacity to engage with students directly and relate to them, convey, any concerns that may come up and help them on their journey to becoming productive and contributing citizens and in the town while they're here and elsewhere when they move on from here. And so that's obviously a need within the position. The other piece is, of course, working with other entities, including landlords where necessary or with other leadership in the town. Certainly those inside the university that will be collaborators. So this is a person that will be operating at, we expect, a very high level with the capacity to communicate well and to convey important information directly where necessary.
There's an interesting element of John's duty that has to do with real estate,
With the website.
with the website
Yes.
and also with dealing with landlords. At one point, we tried to
Right.
put out a recommended lease, but that was a disaster. So, but one of the real issues is asking landlords to hold their tenants accountable for behaviors.
Yeah, and that's where we really will benefit from ongoing collaboration with the town. And I can't remember the name of the individual on your all's team that does the landlord engagement. We met with him recently, though. What was it?
Was it Mike Ninto, the director of
Yes.
building and housing?
Yes, that's right. So those two individuals, I think, will need to work closely together that way. So
I have a question, when you were saying about, experience with diversity. Oh, experience with diversity. How about, does that include experience with international students?
that's inclusive of,
Okay.
I would say. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, critical, especially as it relates to international students. A lot of our graduate students, rather, a lot of our graduate students living in the community are international students as well. So, but undergraduate students also.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh, Dale reminds me. I had a house guest for 5 months who was a Fulbright scholar here for 5 months. And she could not find housing anywhere that she could afford on her Fulbright. She nearly went home and came very close. And it just seems to me that the university recruits visiting faculty and then doesn't provide any kind of housing anywhere. I know that you used to. I know that when the Oaks opened, you reserved rooms, number of apartments there. There used to be on-campus housing, but I was really shocked that nobody was able to find a place for her. And she came from an Eastern European country, so she didn't have a lot of money. I was very glad to be able to house her, but it was kind of embarrassing, frankly, as a representation of the university that it invites stellar scholars and then drops them in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we do have a number of housing beds that we provide to graduate students. The program on campus is predominantly undergraduate students, to be clear, and designed to that end. But Northwood Apartments, of course, has a number of spaces available for graduate students, and we've been working with our Graduate Student Senate to field their interest and concerns as it relates to accommodations for graduate students going forward. And that's something that we're working to change. This fall will present some challenges with space constraints, but what we've committed to the graduate students is that the first 150 graduate students, we will guarantee that we will place them on campus in one of our accommodations that are designed for graduate students.
I'd
How many
like to
graduate students
piggyback.
are there?
I'd like to piggyback on this for just a minute because recently, for the last 2 years, on our street, we lost one Chinese student who could no longer afford the rental off campus and went back to China, even though he was a PhD student. And then just recently, Asian American family, who no longer could afford their rent, with one parent needing to take care of the child while the other parent was in school, and the wife dropped out of school. And then just in the last few weeks, actually mid-semester, they left to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems critical to me, particularly when the statistics now are like about 20% of students are married students. And that's even more so with graduate students and some with families. And what is the university going to do to provide housing for these for individuals? I talked to the individuals that left, and they said they were never told what housing was going to cost them. And so they just tried and tried and tried and couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I think we've wandered off the agenda a little bit, but this is an important topic. So I'm just gonna maybe address a couple of the things that you asked about, Dale. And then Brian, I heard your question too in terms of how many graduate students do we have, and so I'll address that too. And then I may just keep on moving because we may get to more of these kind of updates later in the agenda, but I also think it's going to require of us to do a little bit of follow-up. I think this is a topic that is one that we need to work on together. The university does have some limited options available, as I suggested. It's important to understand that international students that come to us actually are required to demonstrate that they have the financial resources to pay for the full cost of attendance, even to get their visa. That's a requirement that's imposed by the U.S. Department of State, not actually by the university. And so having demonstrated that and they arrive here, I'm always a little bit puzzled how some students find themselves in a situation, although after hearing their personal stories, I know how they got there. But that doesn't make the issue go away, right? So we've got to figure out what are the variety of options that can be made available, and what are the additional support mechanisms that can be put in place in the instance that there's a student that finds themselves with suddenly the inability to pay for housing. In some cases, it's because of an emergency, a family emergency that occurred, or a crisis in their country. You know, I think about our students from Ukraine. For a period of time, were unable to get to their family resources to pay for these kinds of things. So the university stepped in to help. But that's a rare example, and I think every student story is a little bit different that way. So, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I just thought actually, we might have mentioned this at a previous meeting, I don't recall, but I think it's important maybe now just to bring up, while this isn't going to address concerns that individuals, families, of any sort would have, or with respect to finding housing initially, I did want to point out that when it comes to people that have already kind of matriculated, that are already living here, if their rents are drastically changed, if it seems excessive and disproportionate, we do have a fair rent commission now, and so we want to make sure that the university is aware of that. This was something that became statutorily obligated for us recently because our population, we're over 25,000, we're just over. So recent changes in state law required us to establish, which we did, officially populated just in the last few months. It took us a while to get our full complement of members, but basically in a nutshell, a fair rent commission, it's a quasi judicial kind of body that just hears appeals from, typically would be generated by a tenant who feels that essentially their rent has been disproportionately increased. It's no longer affordable and it has no real basis. So again, this has nothing to do with market rate. If people knowingly go into a lease or they're just looking for initial housing and it's beyond their financial capability, this has no bearing on controlling rent for like the initial lease. But once people move in, it's a safeguard against unreasonable increases in their rents so don't become displaced. So I don't get the sense that that's a majority of the people you're talking about, but to the extent you have graduate students or anybody else in the university community that are experiencing that, we certainly want to make sure that the UConn is aware the town has this commission and there is this outlet to make an appeal.
That's really great to hear about Ryan. So, Brian, we have about 4 or 5,000 graduate students total, maybe a bit more than that. So I think that's what I heard your question to be earlier. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I also just want to make a statement. Having been a landlord who has rented to many international students, of course, they make great tenants, are very respectful. Um, they they do come across what I refer to as culture shock, acclimation problems that can lead to homesickness, depression, and anxiety. Uh, it's not just a rent issue. A lot of people end up going back home because of mental health issues and other reasons. I know the university probably has some program for culture shock or acclimation, whatever you want to call it. What are we doing on that front?
Yeah, our International Student Support Services office is available there, as well as the whole array of student support services. Sometimes it's an issue of students having awareness that those things are available to them, which is an issue that we've talked about with our graduate student leaders as well. And so there's more conversation going along the lines of when students arrive here, making sure they're properly introduced to what these services are and how they access and utilize them. Um, I think it might be good if we were to take a step back, and maybe we can do this in a future staff to staff meeting, and think about what an assessment of the available rental properties in the town looks like by cost category as well as by amenity and distance from campus. And I throw the distance from campus piece in there because I know that we've had ongoing conversations about pedestrians and other things. And I think that in some cases, students are making economic decisions, which then subsequently puts them in a position where they now don't have a car and are walking to campus. And, that's come up in prior meetings. So, and then from there, we can determine what's the next right place for us to go. And we can include in the assessment the available on-campus graduate housing too, if that makes sense to everybody here.
Yeah, I just was curious, do you think in the future there would be a focus on graduate housing, married graduate housing on campus? Many universities, certainly where I graduated, did have that, and it was really a wonderful thing for all of those. It made it a community.
I think that's what Mansfield Apartments used to be in the
Yes,
beginning
well,
of
it's
time.
true.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. So it's something that, we could take a look at.
And the last thing is that I talking to the wife before they disappeared, it was a matter of shame for her that they couldn't make the rent. And so it was very difficult to talk to anyone. I had no idea that they just suddenly left.
All right, we're going to keep on moving down the agenda here because we'll have some opportunity in a future meeting, I think, to update on that again, but very important issues for us to think about. The next item is Town of Mansfield Development Updates. Jennifer and Ryan.
I'll let Jen get started.
Because we are in a moratorium for multifamily housing, we really have no active developments to report on. However, we have been in communication with the folks who received a special permit for the Villages, which is the property where Toast at Four Corners and Hops 44 is a redevelopment of that other portion of that. We've been communicating with them about a zoning permit. So then their next step will be to file a zoning permit and then a building permit, and then they can get started. So let's see. In terms of one other development activity is the Eagleville Green, the Mansfield Nonprofit Housing Development Corporation. The folks that are developing Eagleville Green came to the Affordable Housing Committee last Thursday, and they are interested in expanding Helinco. So Helinco currently is 35, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, I believe, available to 80% folks earning 80% area median income. They're looking to add units and actually renovate the existing Helinco apartments. So I think that is going to be good news, and they will be looking to leverage grants, but also access some of the town's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. In terms of planning initiatives, we are in the process of drafting our vision and goals and objectives for the Northwest Mansfield Vision and Strategy Plan. FHI Studio, our consultant, is going to be coming to the Planning and Zoning Commission at their next meeting. I believe it's March 18th. So we encourage you all to tune in and hopefully look at some town council members there. And then in terms of our moratorium and moving forward, that expires on August 31st. And we have been working very diligently with our consultant and the Planning and Zoning Commission to provide a framework for updating those regulations. So more to come on that. At the last meeting, there was some concern about transportation and walkways and safe pedestrian access. So Ryan, would you be willing to share this map?
Oh, yep.
I just pulled this map that Ryan is going to share from our bike ped plan that we're about to have the town council adopt. They've looked at this, but there were a few changes. So, and then we also want to work with WRTD to get the bus stops. But this is just sort of an idea of where our sidewalks are. What is in pink and blue are actually, the pink are the multi-use paths and the blue are sidewalks. So then we have some additional sidewalks that are going to be happening. We are going to be adding a sidewalk from North Eagleville to Separatist along Hunting Lodge Road. And then we will be having a sidewalk from Separatist to Maple Road. It's a green, if you want to point to that green down by,
Oh, sorry.
there we go. Yeah. And then we're in the process of, and then also we'll have a sidewalk along Maple Road to the middle school. We're going to be doing some traffic calming and widening the path along South Eagleville Road, and we'll be adding a sidewalk in between Eastwood and Westwood, as well as extending the sidewalk along the full frontage of the town hall. The one missing gap, which Ryan can report on some good news, I think, is this sort of the portion along 195. Oh, I did want to mention also that in front of the Villages and the Standard, there will also be a sidewalk. So we will add the bus stop so that we can kind of get a good idea of how we can move pedestrians safely in this area. But Ryan, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. So we received confirmation yesterday, late in the day, that the bipartisan budget bill that President Biden signed into law did include $1 million in funding as one of the quote unquote community projects that Congressman Courtney, an earmark that Congressman Courtney's office advanced. So this total project that Jen referred to, roughly 1 mile stretch, 10.5 foot wide, multi-use trail that would run more or less parallel to 195 on the, I guess you could say, southwestern side of the road. So the left-hand side as you head towards Four Corners. $3.5 million project, $1 million was included in the federal budget. So clearly still a large gap, $2.5 million to cover, but hopefully this builds momentum to get the project financed. It's certainly it's a major step in the right direction. So, and we really appreciate Congressman Courtney continuing to champion this. We've been at this a few years now. Would have loved full funding, but we're excited to be where we are.
And just one final update. We have been waiting until we get a new fire chief to have a meeting with public safety officials with both Yukon and Mansfield, just to kind of come up with a unified front, and then we will be engaging the new property managers of the Standard, the Hub, and all of the properties as they come online.
Great. Thank you for that. Sean, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Ryan, for the update. I was excited to hear the news during town council last night. I have to ask, given the, I think, 2 failed attempts in recent years, what are the chances now that we have some momentum at Four Corners with those developments that this earmark will fade away as like the previous 2?
Well, I think the big difference, and we're not there yet because this is, less than 1/3 of the overall needed funding. The big difference is this is the first time that we've actually gotten funding secured. Previous attempts, Congressman Courtney had advanced essentially our full request, but then all member directed funding kind of went away. And I think if it was included in the House version, it died in the Senate, or however it worked out. We got nothing, and then we're back at the drawing board. So, there are, as I'm sure you're aware, Sean, right now we're inhabiting this time frame where there's a lot of infrastructure money, still a lot of post-COVID money. Seems like new programs are kind of being invented, and it's almost hard to keep track of everything that's out there. We've had some challenges finding, because like as an example, I forget the name of the program, but I know there's quote unquote trail money, a state program, but I believe that's capped at $1 million. So the question now would become, in terms of the eligibility for that project, since this is a trail project, unlike say Maple Road, which is a road reconstruction project with a trail. So the funding for that is the fact that you're actually getting a new road out of it. This is just a trail. But can we apply for funding, say $1 million in funding for this project if that won't cover the full gap? Will the state accept that? Or do you have to advance a project that if you got $1 million, you can do the entire project? So we're certainly trying to leave no stone unturned. Any help that, the university can continue to provide, we greatly appreciated your letters of support as we put together the initial community project request. I know you guys have supported it the last few years, which is
Yes, we
great.
have. Yep.
So let's continue to put our heads together.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and in the interim, though, for those that will occupy the new developments north of Four Corners, there should be some sort of campaign through the landlords that there is in fact a safe route to Yukon. And now by making those connections that you're making in green, and I'm not sure I heard the blue, but I think that sidewalk that already exists right at Four Corners, once that ties in at CVS, it's a safe route the rest of the way into core campus via Discovery Drive. So unfortunately, there are still students that walk the shoulder on 195, and that's why we fully support the addition of a sidewalk there. But in the meantime, they should be encouraged to use the sidewalks via Discovery Drive. Just a couple other questions, since this is a topic near and dear to many of us on an advisory group on campus. So the Safe Streets for All grant application dates were announced. The webinar was last week. We see it as an opportunity to partner with the town if the town does not yet have an action plan in place. Do you?
We don't, I believe, and I don't know the status of it, but I believe we're partnering with CROG as part of the CROG's effort to have a regional action plan and have our priority projects, local projects kind of embedded in the regional plan to satisfy that requirement. But in terms of exactly where that's at in process, and the timeline, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well, let's follow
Yeah,
up on
yeah.
that because I think it is a good opportunity. We've also expressed interest to CROG and anything that they might have planned. A great resource for us. I think at the very least, we plan on applying to create a campus action plan as well as some demonstration projects through the Transportation Institute.
Yeah, no, I would be excited about the opportunity to piggyback on what you're doing.
That it? Okay, great. Next item on the agenda is Mansfield Downtown Partnership and Economic Development. Cynthia.
Good afternoon. A couple of things. I'll start with downtown stores and then talk more townwide. We will be releasing our event schedule in the next couple of days, so we're excited about that. We also had I'm sorry, let me back up. A group Unlocking Connecticut, which has been going to various towns in Connecticut to highlight them. We were showcased a couple of weekends ago, and I can put in a couple of minutes the link to the Unlocking Connecticut website. But they came, they went to Dogland Cafe, they went to Square Peg Pizza, they went to the Jorgensen, stayed at the Graduate, took a hike on Moss Sanctuary. So this is a nice complement to some of the things we've been working with in our strategic plan in terms of trying to put together itineraries to come to Mansfield. So I want to give a shout out to Kathleen Patterson in our office for all the work that she did on putting that together. With respect to kind of the larger economic development in the town, we at a staff level have been discussing a cultural district. We had 3 community meetings, and we are hoping to come to the council with a proposal to create a Mansfield Cultural District in probably late spring. We have been working with the Arts Recovery ARPA funds that the town received, or the town granted, on a public art trail in Mansfield Center. We have 3 proposals near the elementary school, along in front of the ball fields, and then also at the library. So a variety of art we're looking at: sculpture, signage, and hopefully a mural. So we are close to having those proposals ready for our staff team to review. We've seen initial concepts. Connecticut's Countryside, our initiative with Bolton, Coventry, and Tolland. I don't think I mentioned at the last meeting, but we had a business forum at the Innovation Partnership Building with Dr. Tim Liptrap from Nichols College and the head of Coventry EDC giving an overview on AI. It was very interesting, very well received. We also heard about CT Visit and how businesses can get on that is the state's tourism website. So we also had a follow-up at Hops 44. So it was a great turnout. I think a great event. We'll probably do a couple more related to AI because it was such a popular topic. We also almost have a vendor selected for Connecticut's Countryside website. So that'll really promote the region. We have our brochure and our video that we hope to put up there as well. And then related to our town gown cooperation, and thank you to Nathan, we're back on the Yukon Bound Days schedule. So we will have a table representing the town and the downtown at the 2 Bound Days coming up in April. And that's all I had. If anybody has any questions, or if any of our board members here have anything additional that they wanted to add.
Any questions? Excellent updates. Thank you, Cynthia, for that. Next item on the agenda is Yukon construction update. Sean.
Thanks, Nathan. So the majority of activity on campus continues to concentrate on the South Campus. South Campus Residence Hall still marching towards a fall opening, as well as its dining facility. The infrastructure associated with that will continue into next summer of 25. Spring of 24, we anticipate beginning the Mirror Lake project that's out to bid or about to go out to bid now. We would, if it was a building project, we would probably take the opportunity to begin in the fall, having bids in hand, but because of the type of work, where we can't leave the site in a certain state over the course of the winter months, we have to get it done in one calendar year. So that is set to break ground approximately a year from today. The summer projects are getting in their final stages of project formulation ahead of the board April 17th date. Then we'll have a clearer picture of those that have been approved for construction this fall. No major projects to speak of. I think the biggest project, it would be entirely campus impact, would be renovations to the field house. The nursing project is, we met with the construction manager that was selected yesterday. Their name is Lee Kennedy out of Quincy, Massachusetts. They have a large portfolio of healthcare projects, and right now we're tentatively planning for construction to break ground in November of this year. So it's a very aggressive schedule. Probably be no less than an 18-month project, but we're waiting to get more information from the CM on what they expect.
Any questions for Sean? Yeah, Mayor.
When will the main road on campus open?
Which main road?
Hillside, I think it is.
There is no plans to reopen Hillside at this time.
Ever?
Perhaps. One of the things that we did apply for a grant through the Raise 24 program with the US DOT. One of the things that we look to study as part of that award, if we're lucky enough to get it, is to redo our campus traffic model and look at permanent measures to close Hillside.
Oh my goodness, that means you're gonna have to go around campus to get onto campus.
Which you can do today while staying on campus.
While staying on campus.
Yes.
I
In other words, if you say your destination is the South Garage, you can get to the South Garage from both directions. You just need to know where you're going.
Well,
in
you
order
told
to
me
make
last
the-
time the bollards were going to go up on the road I found that would do that.
Oh, the field house road.
Yeah,
The service drive. Yeah, that's happening. Yeah, they're putting the bollards up through the cut through, you mean?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if so, you'd have to, from the north side, you'd have to take Hillside to Alumni. From the south side, you take Bolton to Hillside.
Okay.
So the way through, just to be clear,
Yes.
is to go, if you're coming from the south
Mm-hmm.
and you're going towards Gamble Pavilion, take a left on Calhoun Way and then a right on, what's that road? That cuts over by Hillside,
Alumni.
the Alumni.
Alumni goes up top and around.
Yes.
That's
And then
that's the way to go through campus.
It's how you
Hillside,
connect
Jim
correct.
Calhoun, Alumni, and then you're out to North Eagleville.
Yes.
Okay,
Not as
so-
direct and straight a shot, but for safety reasons and the amount of pedestrians we have crossing there, that's why we tried it.
Well,
And so
that-
far, it's been working well for shuttles only and other active transportation.
okay. From my end of town to get to North Garage is an interesting challenge, but I understand what you're saying about students because it's a real challenge to drive through there.
It is. It is.
Near impossible in the middle of the day, in terms of Hillside as it was adjacent to the student union.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a much better situation to have that be a high traffic pedestrian zone for us. So, yeah, Dale.
Yeah, just curious because
Mhm.
I'm interested if that is to be, well, it may never open again. Are there plans to maybe make that a kind of a green space with sidewalks on either side? Plans to maybe make that a green space with sidewalks on either side. If it's never going to open again, I think it could be lovely.
Yeah, I think everything will be considered. One of the things that I would like to explore is putting the roadway on a diet, so to say, to just accommodate the modes of transportation we want to accommodate.
Okay.
and look at traffic control measures on either end. I know that we've explored a hawk signal at the Jim Calhoun Way intersection so that there isn't that free flow of pedestrians going across from the between the bookstore and Student Rex to alleviate pressure and traffic congestion at that left turn. And on the other end, we might look at a gate or so, and then that will really cut down the traffic to shuttles and service vehicles only. And then we can look at bringing the curb lines in. The master plan in 2015 looked at Hillside in this way as well, and potentially putting liner buildings in front of the student union and the field house in the future to also help narrow down the road corridor.
I mean, UConn's been doing this for years, more of a walkable, pedestrian friendly campus. They eliminated Fairfield Way, I think it was Fairfield Road, Babbage Road, and
Mansfield.
a lot of the other interior roads, but I worked there at the time. At that particular time, it brought challenges for people who were handicapped or ADA, and the access got a little sketchy at that time. Has that improved?
I'm sorry, Brian, the question at the end?
The question was, when we consolidated, got rid of some of the roads and consolidated to more of a pedestrian friendly campus, some of the ADA access got a little, it was lacking. Have we made improvements in that?
Well, from my perspective, at least since the time I've been there in January 2014, every improvement we make to campus facilities has a compliance aspect to it through ADA. And so while it might not be a wholesale improvement of the campus, we're doing everything we can with every given project or alteration of campus to comply with ADA. We do.
So vans have access and wheelchairs have access.
Correct. Now they won't they sometimes will have to rely on our shuttle service or AVS service, I believe it's called, to get folks to exactly where they'd like to go. But we have one of the things that was done not too long ago was a new communications tool for universal access to our buildings and accessible drop-off points and routes to those buildings. And all the buildings were mapped and identified as where elevator locations were, where the accessible door buttons were placed. So I think we're in a better place than we were even in 2014. I think some of the changes you're mentioning were circa 2000, I think, when Fairfield Way went away in front of the library, and Mansfield Way was another one. The continuation of Mansfield Road functioned as a busway for many years between Gully Hall and Glenbrook. So yeah, and you're right to point out that the campus core, like most campuses, has become pedestrian focused, as it should. And so Hillside is really the last remaining piece to that plan.
I'm now teaching a course in Herbst Hall, and I am parking in the south garage because there's no place closer. And I will tell you that that campus does not accommodate an old lady with a back problem. There aren't even places to sit in some places. I end up leaning against light poles. It's definitely designed for 18-year-olds.
So, couple thoughts from myself. ADA issues on campus are improved by Hillside and closing down, I think. Isn't that true, Sean? And
depends on the perspective, I think.
Okay.
I would say yes, from my perch and my expertise. We have, for instance, there are curb ramp locations that don't comply. We have crosswalk desire lines where crosswalks could be. I think that by having it closed, it reduces the pedestrian vehicular conflicts.
Got it. Well, I can tell you, we don't do things for Nathan, just for me, but as a runner, that uses Hillside, it's nice not to have the traffic along there. I've told Ryan this, and I think you too, Mayor, that Separatists I use as well. That's just closed down to through traffic that way. So
If I may, regarding parking near Herbst Hall, there should be some spaces, marked spaces, not too far from that. It's right behind the Armory off of Babbage Road, and also on the other side of the Armory off of Gully Circle.
I'm not impaired enough to have a handicap.
Oh,
That's the problem.
I misunderstood.
Just old. You
Well,
don't
there-
get a handicap for
well,
just
the-
being old and having a bad back.
Well, the other accommodation we make are special permit spaces, and these would be spaces that are convenient to locations for certain, not disabilities, but they're not fully compliant with ADA, so they're not signed as accessible spaces. So it's something you can speak with parking services about.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your point, Mayor, about benches and seating though. So that's something I jotted down to take a look at with, as I go along too. All right, moving on the agenda, campus updates. So there's a number of things included in the memo, which is was previously mentioned, and some of these things we've talked about already, including the off-campus student services position. But I just wanted to highlight a few things that are going on at the university, and some of these are, as I said, in the memo. One of them is that the university recently worked with the Oaks and the residential units to establish an agreement for overflow space for the next fall semester. And that's actually something that we're anticipating may be utilized by graduate students, to our earlier conversation, in addition to Northwood. And so I wanted to make sure that this group, as well as the town, was aware that that has happened. And it is a 1-year agreement and relates to the housing update that's provided in the memo, in that we have a significant number of students that have signed up and indicated that they want to live on campus. It'll be a record number of students living on campus next fall. I think I've talked about that in recent conversations, but we do anticipate having over 13,000 students residing in our residence program, which actually could be the first time that we have had more than 13,000 students living on campus in one of our buildings. So you can see the timeline there, and we're actually in the thick of it now. Our currently enrolled students have already indicated to us who's interested in housing, and our new students will begin that process in a few weeks. So that is ongoing. We're in the middle of spring break right now, so if you find that this week it's been a little bit easier to get around because of reduced traffic, that is the case. I've noticed that myself. So our students are away, and they'll be back for classes for reopen at the beginning of next week. We're having a lot of conversations about the potential for more than one team to be in the Final Four, both our men's and our women's team. And in anticipation of those celebrations and watch parties and the like, we want to make sure that we're creating a productive environment for our students, and that we can avoid any potential aftermath of that we experienced last time around. So just as an example, a couple of things that we're looking at, we're working with, I think it's Troop C, is that right? Is that the troop with Yukon Police and Troop C on how we want to be present there. We're also going to be limiting visitors to our residence halls, just to Yukon students, to avoid just a surge of other college-age students coming onto campus during that period of time. We're also looking at additional programming, perhaps after the event. Don't hold me to this, but just in a way to provide students other alternatives than to just simply rush out of Gamble after the game is over and have a giant crowd. So we're looking at options there as well, and making sure that we're creating a safe environment, a celebratory one for our students during those exciting moments. Other things, there are a number of dates. Cynthia mentioned UConn Bound Days. Cynthia, I'm so glad that you all will be there yet again, and those dates are there. I expect that we should have a number of students that will be coming to Downtown Stores, prospective students, that is, to check it out and see what the community has to offer. I think it's a real selling point for the university as we work to attract students to the University of Connecticut. Spring weekend runs April 18th through April 20th. This has been a very productive and good event for our students in recent years without significant incidents. So I think the university has turned the chapter on that one, making that a very productive environment for our students. There are a number of other updates there that are available, and then otherwise happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. None? Okay, very good. So last item on this section is item F, other updates or progress to report. Is there anything additional that should be reported out at this time?
I guess just very briefly, without any details associated with it, I would pass along that another topic that was raised at our staff to staff meeting was just looking for any indication on the ongoing progress with the AV track and the Depot campus. And so I guess I would just report to this group that the feedback we received from Robert Corbett in the university was that while still a lot of details and discussions being worked through, that the project seemed still, I think it was characterized as more likely than not moving forward in some way, shape, or form. So we were heartened to hear that, because it's certainly a very compelling project.
Great. Anything else?
I have a question. With all we've been hearing about budget issues, has the university announced any plans to accommodate what is seen as a major reduction in the budget?
It's still a work in progress really at this point, a little too early to say anything firm. So members of our government relations team, President Merrick and our CFO and our provost have been in Hartford quite a lot, as you would imagine, working with state leaders and trying to secure the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So that'll come to resolution. I think you all know sometime late in the spring, May timeframe. So but nothing to report out as of yet about that.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? So there's a number of future agenda items that we have jotted down. I just would make note of them and not for discussion necessarily, right? Because we'll have the opportunity in a future agenda to address them. But the memo of agreement between the town and the university is something that we're working on in the staff to staff meetings, and Ryan and I have chatted about that, and we'll be getting to pick that up relatively soon. Last time I think you said that it had been updated was 2017. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think it might have been 2016. Yeah.
Okay, so due time for us to do that as names have changed and
Names and titles and
Yeah,
sort of
all sorts of things.
reorgs. Yeah.
Very good. So we'll do that. We'll have on the docket in a future meeting an update from Yukon Public Safety, as well as our resident state police team here. Transportation from developments to campus. I think that's an important topic to consider, and how that interacts with the university's transit that's available to students. And then I jotted down the additional item of an assessment of availability of affordable housing options for our students, so we can add that to future agenda items. Is there anything else that we should add to this list for the good of the order? No? Okay. All right. Any other additional items, Mayor, that we need to address today?
No, I think a motion to adjourn is in order.
Okay. Motion, second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Good to see you all. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Great.